Good morning, everybody. We all wore, according to the dress code this morning, we all decided to wear black. So I hope that you are also wearing your black this morning while you watch us or listen to us. If you're listening on various podcasting platforms, you're watching us on YouTube this morning live, or you're just watching some kind of a replay. I don't know. It might be 3:30 in the morning for you when you watch this. That's why you can't say, have a great day, because your day might already. All right, this morning, Bulelo and I are joined by an old name and face for people who've been on the Cliff Central train for a long time. Someone who's been a part of our family from the get-go as well. He was there pretty much from year one, and his name is Weza Matomane. How's it, Weza? How are you, man? Nice to see you.
All good. Thank you so much. The same goes for me as well. Nice to see you guys too. And it's great to be back here. I mean, it's like such a full circle moment. I don't know what's it with you guys in September, because my very first show was actually in September. It was a stand-in for Sia. Yes, Sia Sangweni Finn needed to go to Cape Town or something like that. And then on the 22nd of September, they asked me to please stand in for him. So we had our first show on the 22nd of September.
Now, didn't you do that show with two other guys?
Yes. Tshego Mapanga as well as Simpiwe Pedros.
That's right. And you guys, what was your show called?
Well, it had so many different names throughout, you know. So the first one,
it was on for at least 3 or 4 years, right?
Yes, that's true. So in the beginning, obviously because it was a stand-in, we had to assume Sia's name for the show in the beginning, because the first one was just a stand-in. So that one was Untapped Talent.
Untapped Talent. But by the way, we changed the name of that because we found out that Sia was actually bringing on people he found attractive. And then we started calling. No, really, it was like a way for him. It was a way for him to hit on guys he thought were attractive. So what we did.
So that's what the Untapped stood for.
So we actually changed it from Untapped Talent to Tapping the Talent, and that was his show. And so you stood in for him, and then you did your own show because you guys did such a good job of it that we thought, hey, we can't let these people flounder somewhere. Let's give them the show of their own.
Yes, and thanks for the compliment. What happened is that a month later, on the 22nd of October, then we got a call from Cliff Central to say, can you guys come in and do a stand-in for the whole holiday season, because some guys are going away and so on. And we thought, whoa, let's grab this, you know. And sometimes that's how your opportunities come. You know, it first comes as like half a slice, and you just have to make the most of it. So what had happened is we'd come in and had a show called The Study Break, because we thought, hey, maybe people will be studying and they could take the break listening to us. And then it evolved, because closer towards January, I think, is when the next offer came in to say, hey guys, how about you just stay on, okay? And then we had to now come up with a new name, and that was Gentlemen by Choice.
There we go. That's right. And weren't you guys all studying together or something?
Yes, we were. We were all engineering students. So the two of them did industrial engineering, and I had done chemical engineering. So yes, it was all these engineering minds who were trying to, do something that is not really the status quo.
Well, I remember, I think Simpiwe went on to do a bit of an internship at an engineering firm.
Yes,
Let's ended up in banking, right?
Yes, that's true.
And you ended up doing full-time voice work, and you ended up with some pretty big campaigns under the belt. I remember hearing your voice on TV and even seeing you in ads. I mean, is that still going on? Because that's a good business if you can get to the level you were at. Everybody says to me, oh, I want to be a voiceover artist because it looks so easy. Or they sound like this. They go, I'd love to be a voiceover artist. You say to them, yeah, well, that's going to happen for you. Sure, just hang in there.
Actually, it could happen for them too, because there's so many different types of voiceover artists out there, So
you used to train people. In fact, you might still do it. Train people to do voiceovers. But there aren't that many jobs. There are a lot of people who could do it, but there are only a few jobs available, right?
Actually, it's quite the opposite. There's quite a lot of different types of jobs out there. Yeah, it's really just where you're looking and what you're looking for, because there's international jobs too now. So there's websites where you can actually start doing a lot more international jobs, even locally, because
Really?
technology has really evolved. Guys, look at us right now. We're at three different spots, yet we
Yeah.
can all have a show that is in real time and live. And the voiceover game has also evolved the same way. So people
But
now are listening to
explain,
you from
this
all
is
over the
this
place.
this is news to me. So I
Mm,
remember voiceovers. People needed voiceovers mostly for ads and
mm,
occasionally for games or whatever. Like
mhm,
I did a cartoon, a Disney cartoon once. I did some ads for radio. I did some ads for television, where you just do the voiceover, and then they
mm,
pay you. And everybody seems to think that it's always this huge heap of money. And it's sometimes, I mean, if you get like a pretty big contract with a well-known international advertiser, you could end up being paid quite well. But most of
mm,
it is like, a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand rand here or there. And that's not to by any means look down on that. Because
mm.
if you can get money for being a voiceover artist, you've done well. So
Yeah.
I'm more interested in the business of this, because the
Mm,
way I understood it, there are lots of talented people out there who can do things with their voices. And there are probably a lot of people who would have you on like a podcast or a show like ours. But to actually get paid for it was different, right?
mm. You're very right. It's just a beautiful thing for me because I am doing it full time. I'm still doing it full time. I'm training people. I'm a full time voiceover artist. I'm not. I literally am not an engineer by any means in terms of practice right now. And I think I'm more successful here than I would have been working at a firm, at an engineering firm or something like that. So it I've definitely seen that you can create a business out of it, but most of the people approach it wrong. So your agent is not going to get you most of the work. So if you were doing it through an agent, that's probably why there were hundreds sometimes, because they were never supposed to be hundreds, but then obviously an agent has to take their portion too sometimes. And not
You
knowing, yeah, sorry.
you've done that on your own. I mean, that's what's so amazing. You may have had agents to help you out along the way, but it's kind of your reputation has done the work for you. You
Mm,
now are well known, and people then they hear you in one ad and they ask like, "Can we have that guy from that ad?" So tell us about some of the big ones you've done.
okay, cool. So some of the big ones I've done, I think things that stand out is the Summer Awards, because I mean I always grew up watching the Summer Awards, and to be the guy who's doing
Yeah,
the
it's amazing.
nominees for album of the year. That was like, oh shucks, that's me now.
Oh,
Oh shucks, that's cool.
nice.
you know, doing super sport is also really cool because I mean, we watch sports all the time. So being that guy who's like super sport blitz on, that was
Yeah,
really cool.
that's
So
awesome.
I'm still
Awesome.
doing that. And then some international work. Really cool to do things like for, let's say, a network. I mean, I don't watch these kids shows enough. Cartoon Network, as well as BBC and so on. And this is what I wanted to say regarding the international work. The client would be sitting in let's say in Britain,
Yeah.
or in the case of Cartoon Network, they were sitting in France, and I was
Right.
recording from here in Joburg. So they would direct from that side, and even have these days, even the sound engineer is not in the country sometimes. So the sound engineer could be in New York, the director is sitting in
Yeah.
France somewhere, and I'm recording from here, and they're
Now,
editing it live and all of
what do you
that.
need? What do you need to do that? Because I'm going to explain to people what it means when someone directs you in voiceover. Because people think you just sit down, read a script, and then they take the first take and they love it. Um, what do you need? You need a good microphone. You need a strong internet connection, and you
Yes,
need a room
yes,
that's kind of mostly soundproofed. Right? Explain
yes.
how all that works.
So you need to acoustically treat your room. So there's soundproofing is trying to make sure that outside noises don't come in here, okay? But then there's also acoustic treatment. So acoustic treatment is putting in foam and different things to
That's
either
true.
absorb or
That's to
reflect sound.
absorb, yeah, and you wanna absorb most of that sound so that the only sound coming out of there and into the microphone is the voice, because then they don't have
Yeah.
to on the other side, they don't have to add background noise or
Mm,
fiddle around with it to try and clear up any inconsistencies.
And not just any noise, but I mean, not just any voice, but your first voice, and not the reverb of your voice. Because when you're in an empty room, like for instance, imagine when you're in the toilet, right? Because the room is so small, you have a lot of reverb coming back into the mic, and we can hear that. Where are you recording this from? And we don't want that, that awkward feeling at all. So there's everything from that to those thicker ones in the corners, so that you also don't sound too boomy. Like, I don't know if you've ever had to try and do your podcast in a car before, but usually there's that boom sound, like where it sounds too deep.
It's too concentrated almost. So you'll sit there in your studio, and then someone in France will say to you, hello, Weza, we would like you to deliver this line. Please, could you say, Mbulelo Tinta is our special guest this morning on the show. And then you deliver the line, and then they go, could you put an emphasis on show? And you have to do it like 18 times, and it can be really, really annoying.
So the better you are at, first of all, taking direction, and secondly at also imagining what they want and being able to really bring that out the first time round, the less painful this is going to be. But if you're not good at that, then you're going to find yourself doing it 18 times. No one wants you to do it 18 times, but when you can't quite figure it out, that's where it's going to happen. Like, let's say, for instance, you're saying, let's say Mbulelo on cliffcentral.com, and then you say, no, could you change, can you, instead of saying cliffcentral.com, can you say cliffcentral.com? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then I do it again, Mbulelo on cliffcentral.com. So if I'm good at taking the direction, then it's going to be painless.
Well, maybe that's the big difference between you and me, and this is why you've been so successful in this particular field, is because I hated that stuff. Because when you record an ad, you've got some asshole from the ad agency sitting there, and usually they're just trying to justify the fact that they exist and that they've got to get a salary. So they come along to the recording, and then they sit in the room next door to the recording, where they usually have tea and coffee, and they sit on a sofa or whatever, and you're in this little booth which is soundproofed. And then they keep coming through your ears going, can you just change the tone slightly on you so that it sounds more like you're talking directly to the person? And I was like, you know what, honey? In my head, like in my head, I'm thinking, you know what? You're like 26 years old, and you work in advertising, and you're going to tell me how I talk to an audience when I've been doing that for 24 years? Go fuck yourself. You know, I would just like not have the patience for that shit at all.
Yeah,
but I realized like this is where it's better for other people to do that stuff, because it wasn't my thing, and I never enjoyed it. And also, you have to forget about the voiceovers. You have to be pretty clever at invoicing and at doing all the paperwork. There's a lot of that, and it's little bits of money here and there, unless you're a hugely successful voiceover artist, and I know you are. But for the little guys, it's kind of like you do an ad here, you do an ad there, and you're like invoicing for this much, and then so it's many of these little invoices, and they do add up. But I just hated the admin of it, and I was like, nah, you know what? Don't worry about me, guys. You
man's
do
a chemical engineer, Gareth.
He's a genius.
He's a genius. That is top 5 most difficult degrees in university. That is for real. Those guys are for real.
Are you still in touch with Simpiwe and Lesego?
Yes. Occasionally we still link up now and again. Lesego is still like pushing banking quite a lot, but he's appearing on ads every now and again as well. So, which is a cool thing. I think a little bit of me rubbed off on him. So he's not 100% into the banking space. He's still like on and off in terms of that, but he's definitely doing very well. And I could say the same for Simpiwe. Look, Lesego always joked that he would be the one to marry last. He'll marry only when he's like 45 or something old like that. And it's kind of happened, because me and Simpiwe are married, and he's still out there.
I didn't know you were married. Congratulations, man. That's very, very cool.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Are there plans for kids on the way already, or is that still a little way down the track?
Yeah, that's a little bit down the track. Yeah. You just want to kind of enjoy the company first, and just kind of get to know each other before
Well,
we
you guys,
introduce another factor.
you guys did me a huge favor a little while ago too, because you got me to visit my old university for the first time since I had left there. Because you remember we
Wow.
did some kind of event that you put together, you and Simpiwe and Lesego. And I think you
Yes.
got me and DJ Spoo.
Subin Boya.
And Hlubi, and you got us all to do like a little talk at the university. And I was just so impressed by the fact that you'd arranged these things, and you know, you guys were still students, really, and it was tremendous to see like how you got this shit together, and you really are exemplary guys. No, it's a great pleasure to see you again. I every time I get reunited with somebody from those first 2 or 3 years at Cliff Central, I'm always impressed at how we managed to find, and how the people who managed to find us were such quality people. All of them ended up going on to do amazing things. I mean,
Wow.
I think next week Tumi Morake is going to join us, and she's had an incredible career and continues to. You know, Somizi started off with a show on our channel. We have great people like Brent Lindeque, who went on to do all kinds of things too. Just a really nice lineup of very, very smart, impressive human beings who, without doubt, all of them have gone on to show the world what they're made of. It's really good. It makes me feel very proud, because we've, you know, it's really at some point, and I think this is true even for parents, which you know, I'm not a parent, but in some way I feel like a parent must feel when they see their kids go on to do great things. And every time I hear your voice anywhere, I'm always like, yeah, that's our Weza, you know. Look at him killing it out there. It's great stuff.
Thank you so much. And you know what, that also just says something about you and your vision, that as a person, when you've got an idea to be daring, to launch something, to create a platform, that it won't only be for you, but it will actually give permission to others to launch and create their own things from that as well. So you know, props to you for actually daring and getting fired, or you know, so that you can come and start your own thing, and that you can go against the grain.
Just for the record, because every time people say that, I resigned and started on my own terms. Nobody fired me. They were the most shocked. I left them with their lunch in their hands and nothing else to bargain on. Anyway, here's Charles, who says, that wasn't bad, Gareth, the voiceover, but can you make it sound a little more purple?
That's exactly what happens.
Michael says, just like the old days where there's an A&R guy sitting in the corner of a recording studio trying to tell the band they need less guitar. Well, that used to happen too in the music business. You know, every time there was a recording, there's always some person who thinks they've got the magic. You know, there's Phil Spector, obviously famously from The Wall of Sound. He was a brilliant record producer. And he used to produce some of those kind of just post-Motown bands. And he was incredible as a producer. And he would hear things, and he'd be able to pick up on what was missing in any song. And that's such a skill. But please believe me, most of those people in these recordings, they were not Phil Spector. Tracy said, do you remember that Cell C woman's voice from a few years back? Cell C for yourself. Yeah, of course, you remember her.
Why does it sound like it was you?
No, but I think she was my French lecturer at university's daughter. Somebody told me. I'm not sure if it's true, but that's what someone said to me. Tabo says, oh dear, it's a sausage fest this morning. All right, sorry, Tabo.
Untapped talent. It's full circle.
Exactly. Yeah. No, the flipping cowbell. Yeah. Tracy's also bringing up here that there was that scene in SNL with Will Ferrell and Jimmy Fallon and Christopher Walken with the cowbell. You know, there's the producer, and he says, I need more cowbell. That's what they do. All right. And you guys were from Pretoria, like I was, right? You were all at Tux. That's where you studied engineering at university.
Yeah. And it was like a long trip coming to Cliff Central every single time. But I think one of the craziest was, and that's where I really saw that man, maybe I'm really passionate about this, was when it was during that that study break show, where it's our first opportunity. We're still so excited to have this and all of that, and now I have to go and work vacation work at Sasol in Secunda. So now I'm in Secunda. I'm stuck there in the middle of nowhere in the mines and so on.
Isn't that the most terrible place in the world? I mean, I know you're not a mean person. Like Weza, we've spoken about this once before. People who've never been to Secunda don't understand that there's an actual, Lord of the Rings is Mordor. There's an actual place like that. It's got like chimneys with fire coming out of the top, and it's got a cloud of like black soot and smoke hanging over it the whole time. You can't drink the water because it's so filthy from all the pollution of the industrial plant. And it's just a terrible place. Terrible place.
Look, at that time, I really tried to look at all the positives. I'm grateful that I got this bursary and everything. But man, now it's and the air stinks. But I'm trying to be like, no, it's gonna get better. You really try your best to be positive even in those circumstances. But now
I saw people coming out of the industrial plant there, and they actually had hunchbacks, and their knuckles were dragging on the floor. They were drooling, and their spit was burning through the tar of the road, and they were complete monsters, mutants. Horrible place.
Your perspective is always so interesting, Gareth. I try to look at their shoes. I'm like, hey man, those are shiny shoes. Anyway, so coming back to the story is that it was Thursday, and Thursdays always represented my show on Cliff Central. Man, but how am I gonna do it now? Because I mean, I'm supposed to be here like from 7:30 in the morning all the way to like 4:30, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna act like I just went to lunch early or something. So there I was. I snuck out of the office, kind of left my laptop there so that it looks like, oh no, he's still here. He's just, maybe he just went to another part of the plant or something. And then I got into the car and boom, there I was off onto the highway. Look, this is impulsive, unplanned. I'm like, I'll be back quick. Let me do this. Let me go have my show in Joburg. I'll come back and continue working as if everything was normal. So there I am.
And that's the opposite of a chemical engineer, by the way, because listen, my old man's a chemical engineer, and I know a lot of them. They are the complete opposite of impulsive.
Exactly.
So Weza because it's a long drive too from Secunda. It must have taken you at least an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours. Did they figure it out?
They didn't actually. Well, one end is you're just a VAC work student, so nothing critical has to come from you. It's just kind of to see you sit there and rot away in silence, So there I was on the highway, guys, and I had forgotten that, oh shucks, there's toll gates. I don't have any money. So
what did you do?
So I got into a toll gate and I'm thinking, shucks, oh man, I'm gonna have to turn back. And it's kind of like a one-way, like toll gates are
you're in the queue.
And I'm thinking, oh man, and I'm starting to search every pocket under the seat. I'm trying to find everything because it's like I don't know if it was like R7.50 or something, and I couldn't find that R7.50. I got to R3. That's as much as I got to, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I gonna do? And then I found this old card, like when you open a business and you just never use it, and it's just you just had like $100 in the card just to keep the card active, and I thought. Shucks, I don't even know the pin of this card, but let me just try and see what will happen. So I hand it in and I just hold my breath and think, please don't ask for a pin, please. And then I just see the green light. I'm like, yes, let's go. And that's how I got to Cliff Central that day.
You must have shat yourself. That's such a great story because, those little moments where you're desperate. Like I remember when I was at varsity too, there was bugger all money in my account, right? And then I suddenly had to pay for something, and I had nothing on me. And someone, I didn't even know this person. They're like, no, here's the 10 Rand or whatever is that you need to do this. It's amazing how you never forget those incidents. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to make sure that I don't leave my wallet anywhere, or that I make sure I've got some money somewhere in case this shit happens again, because it's so your whole world could come crashing down. I mean, what would you have done if they wouldn't have let you through the toll gate?
Man,
You know,
shucks. Yeah, that I would have had to turn back right there and then. And there was a second toll gate, but now I had confidence. I whipped out that gold card again. I'm like, card man.
So a couple of comments here from people. Martel says, Secunda is my hometown. I've moved to Durban. I will never go back there. Well done, Martel. Yeah, that's a good decision. Weza won't remember me, says Vince, but we were in the same engineering class. Good to see he's nailing the voice thing. See, one of your ex.
Shout out to Vince, chemical engineering, Grimsel. Yeah,
there we go. Jean says Secunda is Sasselberg on roids, and Barry says the air is so dirty in Secunda that the birds cough you awake in the morning.
Oh my goodness!
It's like having a grandmother with emphysema coughing outside your window every day.
Jeez, man.
Jean says, I remember the Springboks used to train a lot in Secunda back in the day. It explains why Bucky's Puerto was the way he was.
Shame.
Oh, that's so good. Michael says, this is interesting, Weza. You can comment on this. They managed to make auto-tune for singers, but they could never make the auto charisma for radio. You can't fake an interested voice for very long. Oh, yeah. Is that true in your mind? Like, you can't fake a voice.
Definitely. I mean, even nowadays, they're trying to bring in automated voiceovers, to be the voiceover, but they don't have the charisma, the human element that
You just made me think of something. So this is something that I cannot stand, and I don't know how to explain it, and I've never really brought it up on the show before, but now we've got the guy here who can help us. You know these social media posts on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever, where they have a voice that goes, he couldn't believe his girlfriend was there. You know, those things drive me crazy. Like, who does that? Who wants those completely automated, robotic, stupid voices where they go, she went for the glass of water and it spilled on her lap, and now everyone thinks she pissed herself. You know those voices?
Yes.
I fucking hate those things more than you can believe. It drives me insane. I cannot understand why anyone forwards any of those files. If you ever get anything from me with one of those voiceovers, with one of those automated, robotic, terrible, what do they call them? Like narrations almost. What would you say about those things? Drive me. They spoil a good video.
So that's good. You need to make a petition, and a bunch of you need to say that so that they can just cancel it. Because right now, the wave, especially in America, is getting a bunch of voice artists to say a lot of words, like random words, so that they can build this database of let's say an engine that can say anything. But then it ends up sounding the way those things sound. It's not really emotional. It's not really. It's not really even relevant to what you're talking about at the time.
I can't stand it. Maybe because I've been in media and in radio, and I kind of know a little bit about it. Those voices just drive me to drink, man. It's the strangest thing. It kicks me such a bad reaction up inside me when I hear those voices.
Yeah, and that's because when it's recorded, like when you're sitting there in the booth, they would say, okay, let me just show you how the numbers won't work. They would say the numbers, but say them all with the same inflection and the same tone, so that we can put them anywhere in any order, and it wouldn't sound like that was the end or the beginning of a sentence. So you would normally say 1, 2, 3, 4, or like Gareth, Cliff, show. So now the thing when it's put together, it's like, welcome to the Gareth Cliff show, and that's not like really.
But exactly. I reckon the best voiceover job you could get is to be like Siri or Alexa, because there must be 1,000 things you have to say a day, and they must contract you for like millions to do that stuff. It must be incredible money.
I hope it is millions, because and it can be, but the problem is that sometimes some voice artists don't know what the rate should be. So what they end up doing is they just kind of say yes to whatever you're offering. So empowerment, like just knowing how the international or even the local rate cards work, those things always help a lot.
Here's a nice comment from Justice Lesilo, who says, Weza, I remember I tagged you in a post or job advert at SABC and you got it and DM'd me about it. You're so good. You deserve it. That's
yeah,
very
thank
nice.
you. Thank you so much. You know, these type of tags and DMs sometimes is what ends up getting me a job, you know. So what happened with one of the SABC stuff, and I'm not sure if he's let me just see, Where's I remember I tagged you on a post job advert at SABC and you got a DM, you got to DM me about it. Yeah. So I think I think Justice might be the one who tagged me on an ad where they were looking for SABC One's new voiceover artist and something like that. And I looked at it and I thought, competition? I don't know, hey, because they're gonna want me to compete, and then they're gonna want me to get likes and stuff. And I hate that stuff where they kind of, you know, make you go and do a lot of social media campaigning before they give you a job. And I thought, I'm not gonna do this. And then a bunch of people came to me for advice for the same thing. And they would even come to my studio and I would help them record things and I would help them enter the actual competition, until I thought, Wes, maybe you should actually just, you know, do this. And I thought, no, I don't want to find myself working too hard and getting something like this. And then they can exploit me. Because what if they've already picked their people? These guys can be corrupt. And I thought, okay. So one more time, Wiz. So I ended up doing it, okay? But I picked my like I just picked a take where I was just teaching someone how to do it so that they can do it, and I just said, okay, I want this, but I don't want it that bad. Let me just use my my demos that are not that great, and let me see what happens. And then I actually got the gig.
All right, listen, we've got to get to some headlines. I just want to look at a couple of big stories that are going on around us. This is from the BBC this morning. They say cars can be toilet trained in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. How do you like that?
What?
Can you believe that? Yeah.
In order to release greenhouse gas emissions.
Well, you see, cows are responsible for a lot of the methane in the atmosphere. From farts. So in the study, which obviously took place in Germany, that's the only place they do things like this, scientists trained animals to use a designated toilet. Their urine was then collected and treated. The ammonia from cow's urine turns into a greenhouse gas, nitrous oxide, when it's mixed with the soil. So worldwide, about 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions from human activities comes from cows. Researchers attempted to teach 16 cows how to use the toilet and dubbed it the Mooloo at a farm that was owned by Research Institute for Farm Animal Biology. The animals were placed in the Mooloo pen and were rewarded with food for urinating in a specific place. After this, they were then placed in an area next to the Mooloo and rewarded for walking into the pen and urinating. Wow. I'm sure this is going to save the planet. I'm sure this is going to reduce carbon emissions and we're going to have a much healthier Earth. I mean, training cows that you're pretty much either training to produce milk or meat. Great move, guys. I hope you're proud of yourselves, dummies. But you know, you can imagine like some activist in like Germany is excited about this because this is going to save the world. Some complete lunatic who really thinks that that's something that's possible. Anyway,
although we do need to do something with cows. We bred them, so like everything has a consequence. So you know, so get them to fart somewhere. You know, that's what you got to do.
I don't like.
I want steak. I want steak. If my cows are like,
I had a steak last night. I don't give a damn about the planet if I can eat steak. I really with you. And
it ends up becoming one of those free range chickens, you know. So you'll get to Woolworths and it'll say potty trained cows. So that you're like, hey, I'll take the potty trained ones. It's an extra $100 per kilo, but I'll take that.
That's it.
Some do-gooder who's like buying the potty trained cow meat rather than the other kind of meat. That's exactly what will happen. And then this is interesting. SASSA recipients are not going to pay for water and electricity services if the EFF manage to run any municipality. because that's one of the things they're promising people. You know, I'm always impressed with the way politicians will promise you the world and then deliver nothing. I mean, Julius Malema and his EFF comrades, they've said basically if you're a SASSA recipient, in other words, if you're among the poorest of the poor who's getting a social grant, the EFF will make sure that the suburbs will subsidize you. You know, just take from the rich and give to the poor, because that's how we work things out. That's how we make it better. It's obviously a great election strategy, because a whole lot of poor people are going, yeah, we don't want to pay for electricity and water. Let someone else pay for us. This is what you do if you're in politics. A commitment made by the EFF when they addressed 3,000 people at Bophelang's Ward 6 in the Vaal, which also comprised a neighboring informal settlement. Malema was on the campaign trail in areas of the Vaal in which he urged voters to cast their ballot for his party. You know that the EFF they do not run a single ward in South Africa. They are not the majority party in any single ward in this country. So for all of their loudness and their batting above their weight and all that kind of thing, these are not serious players. And don't ever be convinced that they are. You can promise people the world, but that doesn't mean you have to deliver as a politician. The Taliban have thanked the world for the aid that they've promised them and have urged the US to show some heart. The Taliban. Okay, let's just stop laughing and let's try and understand this. So the Taliban on Tuesday, thanked the world for pledging hundreds of millions of dollars in emergency aid to Afghanistan. I'm sure they thanked them, and I'm sure that came from the bottom of their hearts, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I donated it. I donated at KFC. You know, when they force you or try and guilt you into the R2 thing.
Add hope.
Yeah, that's it. I said no. I want to take away hope. Send my R2 to the Taliban.
Correct, and that's what you can do. So apparently there was a donor conference. I would love to meet the people who go to these things. They must be the worst people on planet Earth. A donor conference in Geneva on Monday saw countries promise a total of $1.2 billion in aid for Afghanistan, which was taken over by the hardline Islamist group last month in a lightning offensive that took retreating U.S. troops by surprise. And Joe Biden, he said it was all part of the plan, of course, but Joe Biden doesn't know what he did yesterday afternoon. Afghanistan, already heavily dependent on aid, is facing an economic crisis with new authorities unable to pay salaries and food prices soaring. So who thinks the Taliban are going to do the right thing with all of this money that's being promised to them? Put your hands up. Let me see who you are.
It depends what you think the right thing is.
Well,
until I've heard their side, Gareth, because we live in this time now. Until the Taliban has sent me their 10-page proposal on how they see the next 15 years for the children of Afghanistan, I'm not going to... listen, let me tell you something. My mother lived in Geneva. That is the biggest bunch of dickheads you've ever met in your life, right? Is what happens there is everyone who's gone to Harvard, and it's not even the business people. It's very much the political students. So Sciences Po, if you're French. It is so disgusting, and they all think they're so smart, and they do sweet blow all. It is so boring there.
Exactly.
Nice lake. Nice lake.
Nice lake, and they sell lots of watches there. That's pretty much it.
And they don't like Italians. They don't like Italians. Just so you know.
Yeah, I just want to hear both of your opinions on this. You're both engineering students. So mining sector has shed 23,000 jobs between 2012 and 2019. So this is a scary number, because those 23,000 jobs, obviously we need them in this country more than anywhere else. Mining employment stood at over 514,000 people in 2019, and that's down from 538,000 people back in 2012. So obviously they had these job cuts because the price of gold goes up and down, and uranium ore mining is one of the other areas that we've lost so many jobs, because obviously the world doesn't need as much uranium. You don't need a huge amount of it. We have uranium mines in this country, but you need less of it to generate the power in a power plant, for example, than you did before. So the sector has bled jobs. The total income for the mining industry has actually grown, though. So we can use less people to do more mining. And because the prices are going up and down the whole time, we base it on that and nothing else. This is just kind of a consequence of how mining changes, right? It's not like these mining bosses have decided, we're going to on purpose cut people's jobs and make them poor.
And just to be clear, I'm not as smart as Weza. I did chemistry. That's a whole different world. Like what I did and what he did. My dad did what Weza did. Yeah, I'm nowhere near as smart as him.
Oh, come on, guys. So Gareth, you're very right. Here's the problem is that we normally use history to inform our moves for the future. So when we were, for instance, in school, we were using how booming the engineering and the mining space was to inform what we're going to be studying for the next 4 years. And by the time we had finished, the jobs were not quite there anymore, and it had already started. People had already started being, retrenched or cut off and so on, and downsizing had already started to occur. In fact, our professors even called us into an auditorium and said, guys, you might have to start thinking of working in banks and in other spaces because the mines are not what they used to be. So with more and more technology entering the space, there's more things that are automated, more things where they don't necessarily need 3 engineers. They could just do with 1. So there's a lot of that happening too. But I think the biggest lesson is that you shouldn't be using the past to inform how the future is going to go, because there's so much technology and so much growth that happens that you should really try to extrapolate.
This is such a good point.
This
is such a good point because the mining engineers, who are a very specialized group of people, and they're very well educated. They get paid well if they end up working for a good company. But those are not the people that most of us think about when we think about job losses. We think about the people in the mines. But of course, it obviously affects the people at the top of the salary scale as well, because you don't need 10 of these guys in your mining business. You need 5 now, because also those 5 are expected to be so much more efficient. And I was always told at university, and I'm sure you were too when you started, oh, go and study engineering because we'll never run out of the need for engineers. And in some ways, that's still true.
Yeah.
Because especially in places like mechanical and civil and chemical and electrical engineering, frankly, those are still jobs that are very much required by the economy. You always see these are the top 10 jobs that people are needed in South Africa. And engineering usually takes up at least 5 or 6 of those. So it's still a good.
There's a book that Bill Gates wanted people to read back in the day. It's called How to Lie with Stats, or How to Lie with Statistics. So when you look at statistics in one angle, it looks like, ooh, this is clearly in demand. So for us, it's like this. There's a ratio of people to engineers that is a benchmark as to how we are supposed to be doing versus how we are doing. So if you look at first world countries, they've got a very good ratio engineers to population, and we don't. We have like let's say some have like 1 for every 300 or 350, and we have 1 for every 10 or 10 or 12,000 or something like that. So because of that, the government is like, ooh, we clearly need more engineers. So now the popular opinion becomes, we need engineers. So then then the inquiry is, who makes engineers? And then they say, universities, they make engineers. Then they go to university and say, university, why aren't you making the engineers that we are needing in this country? Then they say, well, we don't have enough space. Then they say, all right, we are going to make a budget where we are going to build more facilities so that we can get more engineers. We will start producing engineers in our economy. So then they do that, right? So they gave University of Pretoria a bunch of money, and they built these big engineering buildings and labs and stuff. They did the same with all the other top 5 universities as well. And guess what? Now we're pumping out 10 times the engineering graduates and BSc and grads that we've ever done before. But what has not changed is that Sasol is still Sasol, and there hasn't been a clone of Sasol in the last 20 years. So the big companies that were employing engineers are still the same guys, and they haven't grown in capacity.
This is the big failure of like a central planning way of approaching the economy. And the Soviet Union taught most of us, I would hope, clearly there are lots of governments in the world that didn't learn this lesson, that when your government is making these calls, we need so many engineers, and they're creating jobs for certain people in their heads, they forget that unless there's demand in the economy and unless there's supply in the economy, and those things are very much determined by the market, not by the government, you're really creating an artificial system. And then you flood the market with engineers, and suddenly none of those people can get jobs. And not only are they then pissed off that the government tried to create these jobs where there weren't any, but they also can't find work. So they end up doing something completely different. The market always wins. I wish people would just stop trying to fight this. It's always the trick.
Great point. It's why China is going to win, because to an extent, I agree with you. But because our plans are always, let's produce for the next 10 years, you know, a president generally sits 10 years, is that China says, no, we think in 1,000 years. So Xi Jinping doesn't matter. He just happens to be the bus driver now, and that's built into it. Well,
they think maybe 20, which is that's 20 years more than our government thinks.
Well, I mean, when you hear of how the Japanese and sort of the Eastern politicians talk, they don't talk in 20 years. They talk about dynasties. I mean, you hear so. I mean, this is reading some of the literature from back in the day. They're talking about hundreds of years, Gareth. I'm just saying things I've read.
I don't think you've chosen a good example here, because China had this one-child policy. Now they've got 5 men for every woman in their country. It's a disaster. You can't trust any of these idiots. They're politicians, and politicians are not qualified in anything. Remember, you don't have to have a degree in politics to go into politics. You don't have to even be very smart. You just have to win a popularity competition. And then most of the people in this country are happy to just get a job sitting on their asses in parliament and earning a salary. They're not sure what they have to do for that. These are not the people you can entrust
maybe we need to swap things around, because you remember and make and we could say maybe if you're under 18 you can vote for who becomes president, because think of it in high school and primary school, usually the kid with the good marks and the smart one and the one with the leadership traits ends up becoming, you know, the head boy, but not necessarily the popular one who's just the jock. They're literally good at nothing, but they're good at just, you know.
But how do we do that? How do we talking? We can't even elect good mayors in our cities. We've got a municipal and local election coming up this year. And you know what's going to happen, right? They're going to be a couple of real creeps who climb into important positions because they've got friends in high places, or they secure a lot of campaign funding, or they promise people free water and electricity and they never deliver. You know what's going to happen. That's what always happens. We haven't been able to stop this.
Yeah, maybe we should just accept that we are all screwed. Look how bad we are at picking partners. 50% of the world's getting divorced. Correct. Maybe we're just all shitheads.
That's right. I mean, most people can't even look after their own bedroom, let alone worry about the state. So you're going to ask someone who can't look after their own bedroom, you're going to tell them that they must choose who the mayor of Johannesburg is? Please do me a favor. No one will. But DK does agree with you that the Chinese are producing great engineers, and Bulelo is spot on. They will win. I don't doubt that they will win, but they're not foolproof either. Their own policies have resulted in huge amounts of shit for them. You know that. You can see it. Anyway, someone says here that this is quite interesting. When the Three Gorges Dam goes, China will be too distracted to win anything. And you know that those kinds of disasters do happen in China. I saw they blew up like 26 buildings last week. Did you see those videos on social media?
Yeah, that was crazy. They all came down at the same time. It was, wow. Yeah. It almost looked like the Taliban had come to them.
Right.
Allegedly. Please, let's not down talk the Taliban till we've heard their side. Yeah.
Because they're a legitimate government, right? Let's give them a chance because they've got such a great track record. I thought the same thing. I saw these buildings coming down. And I was like, wow, this Taliban, they're really getting back into action. All right, let's turn our attention. Let's turn our attention to something we like to pay attention to every single week. And the reason that we do that is because there are many of us who have got skin in the game when it comes to cryptocurrency. There was a lot of really good news the last time we spoke to Sean Sanders. I think we were hitting like $50,000 for a Bitcoin. It slipped back quite substantially. In fact, last night it was at like 45,000 or even 44,000. And then I woke up this morning, it's back to 47. So it's always you. Maybe you're a good omen, Sean. Maybe that's what it is. Whenever we get you on the show, it seems like the price is recovering nicely. How are you? Sean Sanders from Revix, everybody.
Good morning, Gareth. Good morning, guys. I guess it's just me coming on the show that's determining the Bitcoin price, right? So buy every Tuesday, sell after the show on the Wednesday.
But
Last week we saw a really vicious sell-off, Gareth. Sorry?
Yeah, sorry. Stranger things do happen in crypto. Like we've seen what Elon Musk's tweets can do to the price of Bitcoin. We've also seen what you were talking about last week when you introduced your new Solana offering.
Mhm.
We saw that all over the world, people were suddenly really excited about Solana and how it's going to replace some of Ethereum's market share. How did that work out, by the way, before we get into all the other stuff?
Solana has actually pulled back a little bit from last week, but what we saw last week was actually a really, call it vicious sell-off across the market for no particular reason. And that caused quite a few cryptocurrencies to pull back between 10 to 15%. And as you said, they've sort of moved back up. Solana is going to be bouncing about, I'm talking like up 30% 1 month, down 20% or 30% the next month. And I think the longer term price trend is going to be up for Solana in particular. Why? Because it's a blockchain with a lot of user adoption, a lot of applications are being built on top of it. And there's a lot of developers just moving from the likes of Ethereum and Cardano to Solana. So when you've got those sort of fundamentals, it's not really a case of if it'll go up over the longer term. It's sort of more a case of when. And is that a year or 2 years, 5 years? No one really knows on that front. Hence why we always say sort of take a longer term view when it comes to crypto. The last week has been...
Do you have some Solana in your portfolio?
I do. I have bought every cryptocurrency that we've launched on the platform. I personally have bought myself. You
Awesome.
you kind of, also when I talk on podcasts like this, you need to kind of have skin in the game to, be more passionate about the subject.
Right.
I follow it a little bit more when I've got money behind it, right?
That's why I asked you. Because if you don't buy it, then why should we? That's the thinking.
No, 100%. Every single product that gets launched on the platform, generally speaking, I've traded for a few months beforehand. The team's also got their hands wet, doing a variety of different things with it. We've even tried to utilize the networks. So, if we actually make a transaction on Solana, let's say we use one of the different, I'm not going to go into too much jargon here, but like one of the NFT platforms that are on the network, how much does that cost? How good was that user experience? What does the adoption look like? So that's been an interesting sort of network to sort of see come out of nowhere. And
all right,
I still think it's a really good investment opportunity.
You just repeated it now. It's come out of nowhere. And you said just now that there was no particular reason that there was this 10 to 15% sell-off last week. These things make people nervous. And this is why a lot of the old financial institutions say, oh, stay away from cryptocurrency. But what do you think? Because there are some things that we can absolutely bargain on and things that we can look forward and hope to see come to fruition with some degree of actual research and experience. So when you talk about what the next major factors could be that drive the crypto market higher, what do you think those are?
So there's a few different types, I suppose, of events that can occur. The one of which is that you get another wealthy investor that comes on board. So you're talking the likes of an Elon Musk, right? Let's say, Jeff Bezos comes on board. They always seem to be having, excuse the term here, but like a big dick swinging contest right. Where they sort of want to be like, well, listen, my rocket's bigger than your rocket. I'm going to get to the moon before you do, all of that jazz. So if another investor like that comes on board and they put a few $1 million, even $1 billion into Bitcoin, Ethereum, or one of the other cryptocurrencies, that's going to drive the price higher. And you're seeing this every day with, I guess, well-known players in the investment world, with new players coming on board, their investment firms buying into crypto. I think another big name sort of public figure could really drive this market higher. I think something else as well, which is on the cards, and there's so many different applications with the SEC currently for this, but as a Bitcoin ETF. And that probably will be followed quite closely thereafter by an Ethereum ETF. And what this does really is that this makes it really easy for every single person who has a brokerage account globally to buy into Bitcoin. So a lot of people are hesitant to come to the likes of a Revix or a Coinbase or another reputable platform. I suppose there's also the less reputable ones out there, because of sort of the stigma around crypto. It's like, well, how does this all work? It's weird. How do I get exposure to this area? And an ETF would essentially provide exposure for the sort of more mainstream investors. The other thing to note here is that hedge funds, pension funds, endowments, for them, they've got a pretty tight mandate. They're not allowed to invest in anything that's not a registered security. and an ETF would become a registered security. So it essentially would be taking Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever cryptocurrency and putting it into a financial wrapper, into a financial legal wrapper, really. That structure would enable these different institutions to buy into it. That's another big driver. I think something else we maybe mustn't discount as well is that if we have another COVID-19 wave, and this is a global wave that occurs, and you get the money printing machines back on and they start printing more money, I mean, I'm telling you right now, you're going to see gold and Bitcoin in particular really go on another bull run. Not necessarily, I think, a big probability of that occurring, but it certainly could. And then I think probably the last point to note, which seems, I guess, a bit counterintuitive for a lot of people, but something just to be aware of, is when Bitcoin moves up higher, right, it gets more public attention. And that means more people get on board. And it just becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like the bigger it gets, the less risky in a weird way it becomes. I mean, I can say right now that Bitcoin at $47,000 right now feels a lot less risky than when it was at $5,000 a few years ago. And I think when it's sitting at $100,000 or even $500,000, again, a Bitcoin bull here, I think you're going to see this being a less risky sort of asset. And that's another thing to think about is, as this moves higher and gets bigger, it becomes more attractive for a lot of investors.
I love it. Now, you've got something that happens on Revix that I want you to explain to people quickly. You can actually refer people, and there is a chance for you to earn up to 10,000 Rand just by referring your friends to Revix. Tell us how this works.
So yeah, currently, if you're a Revix customer, you can refer friends to Revix and you earn 300 Rand per referral. And you earn those in points, but you can redeem those points directly for Bitcoin. So it's roughly around, well, it's not roughly, it's exactly 300 Rand per person that you refer to Revix who successfully makes an investment. Now, what we're doing on Friday, because we seem to just like promotions on Fridays, is that we're going to be launching a Refer a Friends campaign where you can earn double the rewards by referring a friend. So if you refer a friend, you're not going to get 300 Rand equivalent in Bitcoin, you're going to get 600 Rand. Starting from this Friday. And that's just a nice way for us to, kind of ask our community to help grow our community, really, right? So that's as straightforward as it is. What's also pretty neat is when you refer someone, and this is currently on the platform today, the person you refer gets 200 Rand in their Revix account when they make their first investment. So this is regardless of the promotion. It's just something that people don't realize, that we're actually giving away 500 Rand, 300 Rand for you currently, 600 Rand from Friday, and then 200 Rand for the person you refer. And it's something that's actually working really well for us. Currently, about 20% of all new signups are coming through our referral program. So we just sort of want to lead into this a little bit more and see how it goes.
I love it. Lebang is saying, "Oh my God, Sean!" She loves you. So she's obviously missing not being on the show today to talk to you about this. Just quickly, this is a question from Hugo. And I know I can throw these at you without preparing you on them. So please ask Sean if we can transfer Bitcoin directly in and out of our Revix account. Can I send Bitcoin to my Revix wallet and out to my private Bitcoin wallet?
You can, definitely. So you can go create a deposit, a Bitcoin deposit on the Revix platform. We'll give you a temporary Bitcoin deposit address that's valid for 60 minutes. If you transfer outside of that 60 minutes, I mean, we still receive the Bitcoin. It just means that we take a little longer to process it. And then when you want to withdraw funds, we process withdrawals 3 times a day, and it'll be processed out to your private Bitcoin wallets if you'd like.
Very good. And just to wrap it up this morning, Michael says, being diversified is one of the benefits of crypto. The other is being decentralized. Keeping money in a bank with the current crypto savings schemes now available is a waste of money. Make your money work. I think that's a really good note to end it on. Sean, you're making us all much, you're making us all much more fluent in the language of crypto.
Yes. Gareth, one more thing. Can I add this in? Because this is something that's a little different. And I want this to be exclusive for Cliff Central listeners. And it's something that I'm just going to experiment with today. I was kind of umming and ahhing as to whether I should say this. So we are currently a profitable business. We've grown about 15 times since this time last year. We've got pretty big, nice, beautiful offices in Cape Town. We try to look really fancy on the Zoom game. And we're busy closing this new funding round. And there's a few million Rand that we have left over. And I'm saying, well, hell, instead of getting these other VCs on board, venture capital firms that come on board, and they invest in Revix, they've never actually used our platform before, they're institutions. Why don't we try extend this to our customers or to people that have heard us on the show for the last 3.5 years? So if you'd be interested in investing in Revix, and that's not investing in one of our products, actually investing in us as a company, You need to make an investment in our UK entity. So you must just make sure that you can actually move funds offshore. You haven't used up your capital allowance or anything. But if you'd be interested in doing that, we are looking for, I suppose, a handful of investors, maybe 5 or 6 different investors to come on board. And we'd be looking for roughly around about R1 million minimum investment. But it would be just interesting to see. I would love to just see if investors are listening to this that would show interest in this.
Absolutely. Let's see if anybody's keen on that, because it does sound like you've got the immediate track record to be able to call up, and people are looking for interesting places to put their money. So there, to Michael's point. All right, nice one. Thanks, Sean. Good to see you. We'll check in with you in a week's time. Very good. Sean Sanders.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. So there we go. There's some options for you this morning. I mean, if you're looking to make a big investment, then this could be something interesting for you. Get hold of them and send Sean an email. Obviously, all the Revix details can be found on cliffcentral.com, or just go straight to them at revix.com, www.revix.com. Okay, when we come back, lots of good stuff. And don't forget, a little later today, we've got that interview that I did with the First Lady, Dr. Tshego Motsepe, which will be on at 8 o'clock this morning. You don't want to miss it. We'll be playing the video out live this morning at 8 o'clock. We also got 2 other guests joining us, Christine Steyn and Colin Mchunu, who are co-authors of Wendi Needs to Hustle. And we'll tell you about that in a little while. That's all on the way. cliffcentral.com on a Wednesday.
This week on Auto Central.
Something that you didn't mention there is the Nissan Z. Is that part of the plan as well, or is that still future? I'm just trying to get these exclusives.
Look. Personally, I love the Z. It's a car that has contributed in defining what Nissan is as a brand.
Catch Auto Central, SA's #1 motoring podcast, every Monday at 9 a.m.
Suffer from collectivism?
I've got this love affair with French antiques.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
This is a King's African Rifles bayonet.
Are you a fanatic? A devotee? Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
I've got like 4 or 5 really big trunks in the garage that are full of my Christmas decoration collection.
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating.
Then you get the limited editions that were like 100 made worldwide.
Possibly a little weird.
So I have a collection of collections.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop.
Beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, won't stop, won't stop, won't stop. Beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, won't stop, won't stop. Beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, now there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, won't stop, won't stop. No stopping it. The beat won't stop, and there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, and there's just no stopping it. The beat won't stop, won't stop, won't stop. Beat won't stop, and there's just no stopping it.
Yo, I put it like wow. This that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me. I hope they know by now.
Central.com and the MKT show with Bolelo, who's with us this morning, as well as Weza Matomane. You may remember Weza from the early days of cliffcentral.com, and he was with us for a good couple of years doing his own show alongside Simpiwe and Lesego for a while, and standing in for everybody, and kind of made his voice so well known And he's so good at that stuff now. You hear him in advertising all over the place. So welcome, Weza. It's nice to have you with us. Lots of interesting comments coming in this morning from all the people who are listening too. So if you've got something to say, you can do that on YouTube Live this morning. You can just drop us a comment there. You can also listen to the podcast on pretty much all of the podcast platforms. It's very, very exciting stuff. We've got some interesting people popping in a little bit later on this morning, but just in case you don't know, the interview I did with Dr. Tshego Motsepe, who's South Africa's First Lady. She's also patron of the Early Care Foundation, and she joins us at 8 o'clock to talk about the Early Care Foundation and her passion and her thoughts around the importance of early care for children. It's something that South Africa is not paying enough attention to. But the Early Care Foundation is an organization dedicated to increasing access to early childhood development, particularly in disadvantaged areas of South Africa, through upskilling women who can work in and teach in these creches, and also the support that they need to run these home-based creches. So the podcast is available. There will be a video of the interview on our YouTube channel and on our website from 8 o'clock this morning. Go and take a look at that. So a couple of things on Mbolelo's list of things we need to get into today. Apparently, some woman at the biltong shop asked you if you were straight, which is hilarious because someone said yesterday on social media, and I think I might have seen it on Twitter or Instagram, I can't remember, but somebody said, if you're transgender and you get misgendered, obviously that hurts your feelings, right? So if you're a transgender woman and someone calls you a man, that obviously makes you really cross. But it says underneath, try not being transgender and someone misgenders you. That's even worse.
Yeah, it's like going to a lady, just like, oh, those are awfully big hands. How long have you? And like, no, my name's been Cindy my whole life.
Yes, exactly. She's not trans at all. Yeah, it's great.
So I walk in. Obviously, we've got our masks on, right?
Right.
So I walk into the biltong, blah blah, get my biltong, and now, as you know, I'm in my nightmare because the lady's like chatty as well. You know me and service people that are chatty. I just think, oh my god, I just want to pay and get out of here. But anyway, so we start chatting, and she starts chatting, and she goes, "I'm sorry to say this, but are you straight?" First of all, she says, "Are you Zulu? Are you Zulu?" I say, "No, I'm Xhosa." And then she goes, "Are you straight?" So I say, "Yeah." She goes, "So I'm sorry to ask you. It's just that." And then she goes, you Xhosa guys, because her best friend is Xhosa and he's gay. And she's like, oh, you've got such a nice voice, but all of you Xhosas, you're all gay.
Wow.
Yeah. That had never happened to me before. She's like, yeah, you've got such a nice voice, but you Xhosas, you and my best friend, you're all gay. I'm like, what are you talking about?
What do you think is more offensive objectively? If you're a guy and you're straight and you get asked if you're gay, which isn't the most offensive thing in the world, but also if you're a woman and you're obese and someone says to you, "Are you pregnant?" Or if you're pregnant and they ask you if you're obese. I mean, which one of those is worse? Because they all come from the same place, right?
Oh, have I got a story about that in primary school? Oh my God, this girl called Kim. Right?
Yeah.
This girl called Kim, I'll never forget her. Kim Childs, shout out to you wherever you are on planet Earth. For one of our teachers, she brought a present for her, like to congratulate her for being pregnant. And she wasn't. She was just a chunky. Yeah.
That is
That was hectic. She gave it to her in front of the whole class. Like it wasn't one of those, you know how sometimes parents will bring it like after school, in front, like, ma'am, this is from and it was clear, it was like, and she wasn't pregnant. So that was brutal.
Did you just describe your teacher as chunky?
Yeah, no, she was a considerable figure.
No, she had ample size.
Yeah, no, she was, but yeah, that is objectively speaking, that one's worse, Gareth. That one's worse is being accused of being pregnant than I mean, gay, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I think these days, if people, whether they think you're straight or gay, or they think you're trans or you're cisgendered, like, to me, the only people who that should matter to are the people you're actually having sex with.
Yeah,
the rest of them, it's like, I don't see how that's relevant to our conversation. You work at the biltong shop.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't like.
just give me the biltong. It's like, you know, when your hairdresser starts asking you about your relationships, and you're like, I don't really feel the need to have to share like my ex with you while you're cutting my. Just cut my hair. Like, I'm also not that keen to make small talk with anybody. It's just incredible. Like people, but I do think it's like it is true that these days people are far more relaxed about talking about these things, right? And it's not such a big deal. It used to be a much bigger deal, you know, back in the days when people you could have been killed for being a cross dresser.
Yeah.
These days, obviously, there's a lot of change going on in that world.
Like Dory in the office. So we people may not know Dory because she's in the background, but she's one of our colleagues. And Dory thought I was gay when I came here, and she says I wasn't sure because she says because you're really into your things, and like I can't explain Dory better than just a younger version of Seinfeld's mom. You know, is Dory doesn't realize how funny she is, but she's so idiosyncratic. You know, and I love her for it. And she is. And she's like, yeah, I thought you were gay when you came here because you're really into your stuff, like, you know, with your coffee and your. I can't do Dory's voice, but
I still get that from people too. But you know what it is? It's also like if you're too conscientious, then some people read that as being, you know, either gay or like you're effeminate or whatever it is. Because, you know, most South African men are like a bull in the china shop. They just kind of lay waste to whatever they're around. So you'll find guys like breaking shit and talking loud and being demonstrative, and then they're like, oh well, okay, so everyone who isn't like that must be the opposite way. But there is also this confusion that people, I mean, if you're gonna judge people on their size in terms of their weight, or you're gonna judge them on their what you perceive as their sexuality or their gender conformity, then we should also judge people on money and class, right? I mean, you do hear people who go, oh, I know that girl's definitely very rich because you could see by her bag or whatever it is, you know, and obviously there's certain things that are telltale signs. There's certain stuff that is Fong Kong as well, so you can't tell as much as you would have before. But you know how people are about this stuff. It's like, do you have a lot of money? Now, if someone asks you that question, I don't think there's a right answer to that. I bumped into someone yesterday who I've known for a long time, but she's not my favorite person. First thing she says to me is, hey, she calls me Cliff. Hey, Cliff, when are you going to give me some money? Like she obviously means like, can I have a job or whatever? Because she's a bit of a loser. So I was like, no, she really is. So I'm like, what? What kind of way is that to introduce yourself after I haven't seen you for like 3 years? That's how you're going to talk to me? Like the last thing I want to do at that point is give you a job, let alone even be talking to you in a shop. Like, can't you just not? Can we pretend this whole thing didn't happen? Because I actually respected you a little bit more before this. It happened yesterday.
Wow.
It's terrible. Some people are just not raised properly. They're raised by wolves.
Having said that, I mean, you make a lot of sense, but I do know when somebody has a lot of money because generally they're a good-looking girl, and the new car that they drive is Fiat, where their dad bought them the Fiat. Because I'm humble. I'm humble.
You said they're good-looking. I know lots of rich people are not good-looking.
No. I'm talking about there's a particular demographic who I do judge. I'm talking about it's always the good-looking, like young, zippy girl. And she's in a Fiat now, because you remember they used to get the 1 Series or the Audi A3 back in the day, and now they go, I've got a Fiat because I'm humble. My dad wanted to buy me a BMW, but no. I just thought that's too much.
You're so humble,
I'm getting a Fiat.
Your own car, you know. That's not humility.
Yeah, so look out for those monsters.
She needs to focus less on the drivers and more on the male voice. That's Michelle's sort of advice this morning.
My gosh.
Jean says South African men associate efficiency with gayness. That's interesting. I don't know if that's true. The New Age movement and Oprah made it okay and even brave to talk about your private life publicly. Oh yeah, that's definitely a result of not just Oprah, but I'd say there's a whole lot of people in the media business who've made that their thing. It makes them sound interesting. I've always thought. But
can I ask? Can I ask? I think that's such a brilliant point because I'm unbelievably protective of my personal life. So I mean, my family here and there, I'm happy to talk about. But I would never, even if I was dating somebody, I would never, ever, ever talk about it to anyone, and I would never date anybody who wants to
tell the
put
people on this show, because we would turn it into material straight away, right?
yeah, exactly. The savages. I wouldn't want the hounds coming for me. But I take it to this level. I would never want to date somebody who'd want to put us as a couple on Instagram or anything like that. I don't like that kind of thing, because for me, I've had that kind of partner. And I do have a question on the end of this, is that I've had the kind of partner who likes to display that I'm dating. I always think dating you's hard enough. I don't want to date the internet, you know? So I'm very protective of my personal life. Do you think that's going, especially because of that Oprah kind of new age?
I think it's coming back again, because people are now sick of hearing everyone else's personal stories. It's now, there's a glut. There's too much. There's an oversupply, under demand. Like, I'm not really that interested in 99% of people's private lives. They don't do anything for me, and I could care less. And I don't want to get involved in some conversation with a complete stranger about, you know, what their preferences are, or who they last were dating, or where they went on their honeymoon. Not interesting to me at all. And I don't think I'm in the minority, because those people are a dime a dozen. They're all walking around saying, "Do you want to hear about my private life?" And the answer is no, quite honestly. There's just nothing about that I'm interested in. What do you think, Weza?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting dilemma, and just the whole thing of privacy versus, you know, being out there and being public. I think what we've gotten used to is public figures need to be public. That's why it's called public figures, and people feel like they have the right to know Gareth Cliff's love life, Gareth Cliff's pet life, and everything just about you, you know. So they go around searching for it, digging for it. Like, is Gareth Cliff gay? Who's Gareth Cliff dating? What's going on with anything and everybody, you know? So as soon as I started, you know, being more on TV and stuff, when I search my name on Google, it pops up like what people often search next to my name, you know,
right?
Things like net worth, things like girlfriend or wife or whatever, because people
Net
generally
worth,
feel
that's
like,
a funny one. It's like, how did they even figure that? Because you can look up almost anyone's net worth on the internet, and it's always wrong. It's always wrong, because you have no idea. I mean, not even your bank knows what you're worth, because you might have other accounts with other banks. You know, you might have investments, or you might have huge liabilities somewhere. You might have family that you pay a huge amount of money for every month. So nobody knows this stuff for sure.
That's true. I don't know where people actually get these things from, and I think they're usually overinflated, just so that people can click and read and whatever. It becomes clickbait, because I mean, there was this list of richest people in South Africa, and it would claim like Vusi Tembekwayo has billions, along with a couple of other people who are billionaires, and you're thinking, billion, really? Like, is that real?
Well, the funny thing is also, you can always tell a couple are in trouble when they start doing photo shoots together.
Oh yeah,
this is absolute.
The
moment you see a couple of people, and I don't have a lot of friends who would do this, so I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire life, but every single one of those 2 or 3 times that they start doing a photo shoot together, you just know, tick-tock on this relationship. It's coming to an abrupt end very soon.
And what happened to private life? Like, it's hard enough to raise a child. It's hard enough, Gareth. Friendships are hard. You know, is what happened to keeping, like, imagine you and I need to borrow you money now, and now people are inside of that as well. I'm just saying. You
also see that. You see people like outing their friends who owe them money on social media, because those friends are such shitheads that they won't pay them back for money that they owe them. Now, I mean, thank God the internet has allowed us to do a couple of things and hold some people accountable. But I just don't understand how, like, you're so, you know, even if someone owes you money, it's got so bad that you need to go on social media in order to get your money out of them. It's so tacky, and then everybody knows that they've been owned. You know, it's it's bad for everyone. I find it interesting, because I spoke to someone who's really smart about this once, and she said to me, there's a difference between being personal and being private. And The distinction is massively important, whether you're a public figure or not. Like there's information which you can share with people that's personal. In other words, I can tell you a story about how, I just recently lost a friend and how that might have felt for me. And that's personal. I'm letting you into my personal world and I'm sharing stuff with you, but I don't have to mention her name because that's private. And then I'm suddenly involving her family, or I'm involving, people who didn't know perhaps that she'd gone or whatever else. So you've got to be careful how much you put out there, because if you share everything, it makes those private things worthless. Then it's everybody's information. Like like you said just now, you're dating the whole internet instead of just dating the person that you're dating. And also, you should really ask permission for those people. It's like you're not allowed to make a recording of somebody without their permission, right?
Yes.
You're not allowed. It's illegal. But you're also not allowed to talk to someone in the press, let's say, or these days it just means social media. You can't go and publicize something without that person's permission. If you care about them, if you stop caring about them, fine, then all bets are off. It's just interesting to me that so many people have no regard for that stuff, and therefore what they end up doing is devaluing the relationships that are close to them. I would never tell you important personal details about my sister or my aunt or any of that stuff without their permission, because I don't think that that's right.
I mean,
but what about a real
that,
example here, Weza? So, sorry, you're a married man. It's like, it's hard enough being married. Is now we live in a different world where everybody thinks their opinion matters. So imagine now your wife and you on Instagram. People are going to start commenting on your wife, and people start commenting about you, and now they're in your marriage in the most insidious of ways. I'd just like to know, what are your thoughts on that? I think it's such a dark space, and I'm a very pragmatic person by nature, so maybe I'm too concerned.
No, very right. Look, I live basically on the same on the same principles. Like there's personal and then there's private. So I also try to make sure that even while we were dating, I didn't make that a social media thing. It doesn't have to be, because then when you gain a little bit of weight, everyone's going to say you gained weight. When this has happened, everyone's going to say, and then eventually that creates a lot of strain. I mean, look at a public example that happened like this past month is Kanye Mbao and her partner or ex-partner. I don't know if you saw the whole situation, but apparently, he's been claiming that I've done so much for her. I've bought this, I've bought that, I've done so much for her. And right now she's nowhere to be found. She said she's going to the salon and it's 1 a.m. and she's still not here. Let me go look for her. So he's literally giving us a blow by blow of like saying, and then I went and then she's still not nowhere, and it's 2 a.m. and haven't slept and she's still nowhere to be found, and stuff like that. And it turns out she dumped, like she basically she left him, but without saying that, hey, let's call it quits.
Oh, wow.
She's seen
now
posting
it's
somewhere.
Everybody's story.
Now it's everyone's story. Now he's going on to the lives and crying and saying, "Baby, come back. I love you." My goodness, guys, it's too much. This could have been handled privately. We wouldn't have known. It wouldn't have been this embarrassing for him. Like, what does this mean for him in his business life and in other space, outside of just this?
Horrible.
Yeah.
That's really horrible. Yeah. See, this is like a soap opera, but not a good soap opera. Bad.
No, it's is it the Telemundo? What are those badly dubbed South American ones? Yeah, like those ones. Telenovela, sorry.
Zanzi novela, this one. Yeah.
And Weza, just to finish off, when people do comment about your partner, let's just say, she's, looking a little round or whatever. 6 months later, you're having real problems, and it's like, we knew they were going to break up. It's like they're eating away at the essence of your relationship. You know what I'm saying?
They're putting bets on how long you're going to last, and saying, I'll give them 6 months.
Here's the even worse thing about all of that, because those people don't really care. They're not that interested. It's just something for them to talk about. And so they can feel a little bit superior for a day about how their life isn't falling apart like yours is. It comes from such a dark and pathetic and small-minded place. You know, it's never like, you're never going to hear the most important people in the world, like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. You're not going to hear them talking about other people's relationships falling apart.
Yeah.
We'll hear about theirs, like Jeff got divorced from Mackenzie and Elon is on to wife number 7 or whatever it is. So we'll be talking about them because we're small people. But I promise you, they're not going on the internet and looking for, Weza Matomane, let's see what happens with him and his wife, or let's see who Bolelo's last girlfriend was. I promise you they don't care. And there's no one more important than them who they're interested in the relationship of. That's absolutely for sure. So you know straight away what kind of people you're dealing with when they're more interested in those minute details of other people's lives than they are in their own. You know exactly what you're doing. I mean,
sometimes it comes from I don't know. Is it an envy thing where it's like, yo, Gareth is doing so well. Last time I saw him with a yellow Bentley and stuff. I wonder, geez, but I'm sure he can't have it all. I'm sure there's something that's not good.
Because we know what it's called. I mean, the Germans figured this out years ago. Schadenfreude. And Schadenfreude is basically this thing where you take pleasure in other people's misery because it makes you feel for an instant superior or better. So, for example, it could have to do with money. It could have to do with relationships. It could even be to do with health. We're going through a pandemic. And what happens with a lot of people is they go, oh, my God, did you hear? Bulelo is so sick with COVID. It's so terrible. Bulelo, I think he's going to die in hospital because he's got the COVID. And it's the same motivation as all the other kinds of Schadenfreude, because what it is like, I'm healthy, lucky me, I feel better about my life. There's someone who's much worse off than I am, and I'm deriving some kind of sick pleasure from the fact that I'm better off than him because I've never liked him, or because I'm jealous of him, or because I think about him more than he thinks about me. That's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, actually, I have an exact example of that. Like, I live very close to Steyn City, and so it's easy to have a conversation that says, "Wow, have you seen Steyn City? Yo, Dow Steyn is like really done well."
How did that become the address? Because I hear people. I met a girl about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she was telling me all about, I moved into Steyn City and Steyn City this and Steyn City that. She talked about it a lot, right? And she's a very pleasant human being. She's not an irritating person at all. But I had no idea that Steyn City had such cachet and that it was such a great place to live.
Steyn City. It's really because of the giant palace that's being built there, like over 100 million or something.
Yeah, so, that's Joe's house, right?
Yeah. So obviously because of that, and that oh man, he's done so well for himself. The person then who was speaking to me felt necessary to say, yeah, but apparently he's not doing well. Hey, like he's very sick. Yeah. So obviously that's exactly the thing. Like you're trying to say, wow, look at this highlight of this person. Look at how great they're doing. And then the person is like, yeah, well, at least I feel better about myself because though I don't have the money, but I have all this amazing health.
Yeah. Humans are so small-minded. They really are. And we live in this little ant farm. And you think about how this ant is jealous of that ant because they got a little piece more straw than they have. It's pathetic. If you do not have a personal life, which is private, then you have absolutely nothing to offer anyone in a relationship except the surface appearance performances. That's a good point from Michael. There are people who like watching the drama and the soap opera on social media. Sure, but there are lots of TV programs that you could watch as well. There's something kind of, the word is prurience, right? Prurience. Yeah.
Okay, that's the great word there, Gareth. Hey, Gareth, also, but I do need to mention at this point, in the interest of self-accountability, I don't give a damn about celebrities who are on social media and open this door and then cry at the end. I'm sorry, I will not give them. I won't, and we must stop doing that. Like, oh, sorry, guys, you should protect her at all costs. No, if you're going to use social media to become the celebrity couple, deal with the sharp end because people are mean.
Andre says, this is interesting, Weza. Weza, you were in my high school, and I think probably my mom, that was a teacher, liked you more than myself in school. So Andre's mom preferred you to her own son. That's hilarious. Very proud of you. And
wow, thank you so much, Andre. Yeah, Mrs. Lowe was like the one, eh?
Just on this issue of Steyn City, I love the fact that someone brought up in the comments just now. Yeah, all these people look at Doe Steyn's huge big house, and he built this enormous house, which I've actually been to visit once or twice, and we've had Carolyn on the show a couple of times as well. But it is a hugely impressive. It's probably the biggest house in South Africa. But just because you live in the neighborhood in a tiny little 1-bedroom flat doesn't mean that you're as important as him in his house, right? That's what someone was saying in the comments.
No, that's...
Have you noticed the insane Schadenfreude with people gloating over someone who's ill or died because they refused the jab? Yeah, I'm starting to see that, Angus. Angus just pointing out that that's something that's happening. These people they feel like they're really special because they've had the COVID vaccine. And then when someone who doesn't have the vaccine dies, they almost take glee in it. That to me that's a very disturbing.
Although both sides are dickheads. Because there's also the, hey, people with the jab are dying. You know what I mean? Like there is just broad spread Freude across the board. Yeah.
To be frank, though, I've seen that on social media. I haven't really seen it in real life. I haven't actually met anyone in my life who's like, oh, this person died because they didn't get the vaccine. Ha, ha, ha. I haven't seen that in real life. And on social media, people are much nastier than they would be in real life, too. They think they can get away with it. So they behave like idiots. All right, let's turn our attention to something cool. Now, we've got a lot going on in this country, and a lot of the stuff that happens in South Africa is as a result of people just trying to hustle, to get their act together, to be able to make a difference in society, to be able to earn a living. And I've got two people who have written a book that's called Wendi Needs to Hustle. And I'll introduce them to you in a second. But it's the story of Wendi, who lost her job due to what's happening in the world. Obviously, COVID, the lockdowns, all of that stuff. As a result, she finds herself with no income, no hope of being employed anytime soon. And this is the story for a lot of people in South Africa. The book is written by 13 different authors, and it's all about small business. Their shared vision is to provide you with a book that will guide you in your journey to start your own business, whether that is for you or for someone else that you know. In addition, they share some expert knowledge as professionals in their fields, and they talk about the mistakes that they made and the tips that they have for not falling into the same traps. So the book is available across the world, will also be available in all languages. There are English and Afrikaans versions for the moment, and it's available on Amazon and at Christine's website, which is Christine Steyn, Steyn.com. So Christine is currently the president of the BNI, which is the Business Network International chapter in Midrand. Hey, Christine, how are you?
Good morning. I'm well, and how are you?
Good. Nice to see you. And awesome. You're one of the small business owners who takes networking very seriously. You guys meet on a weekly basis to create business for each other. And you've actually gone ahead as an entrepreneur and a professional coach since then. We're also joined by Colin Mchunu. Hello, Colin. How are you?
Good morning, Gareth. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to see you. I see you've got the book up there behind you on your shelf. Hold one of those up for us so we have a good look at it.
Yeah, there we go. Here we go.
There we are. That's it. So, Colin, you are a short-term insurance broker. You've been in the industry for 21 years, and you helped to co-author the book along with some other people. So let's start with you, Colin. Why this book now, and explain how you all got together and decided to write it.
So, Gareth, many reasons. Obviously, thanks first of all for being on your show, and to your listeners. The book is really brought up, by all these, pandemic issues that we've experienced, and over and above that, we know obviously in South Africa the unemployment rate, has been climbing for a long time now, and as small business owners, we really just put our minds together. Obviously, a special invite by Christine, first of all, to all of us 13 authors, where she shared her dream and a vision with us. And it was all up to us to really put our minds together, and our words, of course, in the book, and see how best we can appeal to everyone out there in South Africa, just to say, everyone can do it. If you cannot have a job, there's certainly something you can do, and you can certainly approach us. We are here to help.
Oh, we'll see if we can get Gareth back now. Christine, I just wanted.
There we
are you back?
Sorry.
All right.
I was trying to ask a question, and I was wondering why you guys couldn't hear me. But I was saying, Christine, can you tell us how you managed to get people together? Did they choose you? Did you choose them? Did it all just happen? How did it all actually fall into place?
Gareth, I think the worst thing you can do on New Year's morning is to drink your first cup of coffee, because you get huge ideas. So I was thinking on New Year's morning, what is it that I can do to help the people in the country that's now, we are stuck. We have millions of jobless people. And then the idea came into my mind, so what do we have and what can we do about it? And then I approached the 12 other authors, and I asked them if they would be interested in this project, to see what we can produce and see if it is of any help, of any value to anybody. And they all agreed with no objections. And 6 months, 9 months later, the book is here.
All right. So how does it work? You've got different chapters, and you tell the story of this Wendi. How do you manage to thread everyone's various roles or bits of writing into a cogent story? Who had that job? Is that you?
That is me, and it was quite a bit of a complex project, I must say. But the first thing I want to point out is that we didn't want to write a textbook. There's enough textbooks out there talking about entrepreneurship and how to start your own business. This is a story. It's a storytelling. So I took everybody's stuff that they gave me, like Colin said, Wendi, you need to remember the following things when you think of insurance. And I wrote it in a way that Wendi came and she had an interview and a meeting with Colin, and she asked him a few questions. I'm a new person. I don't know what I'm doing. Please tell me what I need to think of when it comes to insurance. And likewise with the attorneys, their sales coach, myself as a coach. And every now and then I put in a coaching session as well for Wendi. It's a bit of a chapter based, and every chapter has a topic and a theme.
And how did you come up with these common themes? Because I'm sure there are common themes that everybody can relate to, because the whole point of this book isn't just to tell another story. There are lots of stories out there, and this one would be fictitious, but it's to help people with lessons that they can learn that can put them in a position where they can start their own business, they can find a job, where they can make a difference. How does that work? And Colin, what was your part in that?
Okay. Well, basically, I think, Gareth, it's all about sharing our stories of how we started our own businesses, our own small businesses. And in so doing, we wanted to make it as realistic as possible. Even though the book is about Wendi, it's also about us. It's also about our small businesses, how we started, how we struggled, and all the challenge that we met along the way. And basically saying to people, this is us, we have done it. It's not easy, but with the right approach and with the right mindset, and obviously the guidance.
Tell us your story. I mean, like, what is your elevator pitch? You were in insurance for 21 years. What have you done since then? And tell us about your own entrepreneurial journey. That's interesting.
All right. So basically, I started as a claims adjuster at Mutual and Federal back in year 2000. And from then onwards, I worked for some big players out there. I'm not going to mention all the names, but I've been around and grown in the role of being in insurance in multiple titles, really. Having been a third-party claims manager to being a regional manager at as I mentioned, I'm not too sure if I'm at liberty to mention names, but yeah, I've been a regional manager. I've looked after people, lots of people, especially in the Joburg area. And last year, 2020, which at the point, seemed like a very, very weird idea. I decided to leave the corporate world and seek a journey of my own, where I could start and cultivate my own legacy. That's when I joined Advice Cube, the company I'm with at the moment, as the head of short-term insurance. And 3 months later, believe it or not, COVID arrived. And I was sitting and thinking to myself, what have I done? You know, I looked at my wife and she said, well, look, we're in it now. We might as well run with it and see what comes out of it. It is your dream, and I'm here to support you in all ways possible. And that's how it started. 3 months later, I was introduced to BNI by one of the executives within Advice Cube. I met Christine and the team of about 23 entrepreneurs at the time. For the first time, it was a Thursday morning, and I never looked back, because to me, it made so much sense to all of a sudden have 23 people around the room that have their own businesses that I can talk to, and they can share their business ideas with me. And besides that, help me grow. Gareth, I've never had to call ever since I joined BNI and I joined these great people. Because
the great lesson here is also collaboration, right? I mean, this is where it's great to have someone like Christine who pulls people together, and you can all learn from each other, rely on each other, share advice, share life stories. I mean, it's almost like a support group with none of the negatives. I mean,
absolutely.
Here says, I'm super proud. It's great to see Colin on this platform. He used to be my manager. How's that?
Wow.
So
Awesome.
used to
I
work with
remember
you.
her actually. I do remember her actually. Very, very clear.
Lena says, Colin, we wish you all the best. May you grow from strength to strength from the Nikers. So there are lots of people who know you here who've joined in the conversation this morning. So Christine, so what's the idea with the book now? We're going to try and sell it, and can people get it from christinesteyn.com or from Amazon? Is that correct?
That's it. My main focus is at the moment those school teachers, heads of departments, ministers, pastors, people who have a community that they support where people are jobless, to buy 10, 20, 50, 100 or 1,000 books and distribute it to those people. Sometimes, and that's something that we need help with, because we're not exactly sure exactly where those people are. And if the people in those communities can reach out to us, so that we can distribute this book to as many people as we possibly can, that would be great.
I like it. All right. So it's called Wendi Needs to Hustle. And two of the authors are with us this morning, Colin Mchunu and Christine Steyn, who both have written parts of it. Christine threaded it all together. Well done, guys. This is great. And I wish you only the best of luck. We need to get South Africa working again. We need more entrepreneurs, small business owners, people with big ideas. So let's go for it. I love it. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Gareth, for the platform. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you, Colin, and thank you, Christine. That's the book, Wendi Needs to Hustle, and you can get, there are two different versions of it. There's the Afrikaans one, Wouter moet wikkel, and Wendi Needs to Hustle is the English version, and they will be in other languages soon as well. So that's great, and it's a small book that can get you through some tough times, especially if you've just lost your job and you're not sure what to do, you're not sure where to go, you're not sure what's happening in the world. You can find out by taking a look at this. I just love that people are coming up with creative ideas around what's otherwise a difficult situation, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the other really cool thing, just touching back on voiceovers, is that voiceovers is also growing in this space, which is audiobooks, you know. So Wendi Needs to Hustle is something that could have also been put into different languages audibly as well, because these days we would rather listen sometimes than read because of how busy the schedule is. I mean, that's why podcasting is working so well as well, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I do a lot of audiobooks because then you can do other things while you're busy listening. So I can be, you know, tidying up around the house. I can go for a walk. I can do some exercise, whatever it is, and I can also at the same time improve the mind.
Yeah, maybe that's an extra chapter in the Wendi Needs to Hustle. Like, how can Wendi hustle with her voice? En Wouter met sy stem. Ja. Ontwikkel.
Well, I didn't believe you until now when you said you did your internship at Sasol, but now I can see the Afrikaans came out. Because ek weet daai is die what do you call at Sasol, the very Afrikaans come.
Yeah, actually, I did everything. I did my primary and my high school. I did in Afrikaans. So Afrikaans was my first language.
Really?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yes, that's true.
Did you grow up in Secunda? Where was this?
in Vanderbijlpark.
It's baie lekker.
Waldreich.
In
Listen,
the Bow Triangle.
Vanderbijlpark, Secunda, you've chosen all the most beautiful places in South Africa to be involved. Jesus.
So that's why I couldn't do Secunda, because I knew what I was getting myself into. It was just going to be another small mining town, and I had bigger,
full of pollution.
Yeah, you can see what you're breathing in. You can see it.
Oh, you don't breathe there. You breathe. What you're breathing in. Breathing in, yeah.
When you blow your nose in Secunda or Vanderbijlpark, it's all the stuff that comes out is just tar, actually.
Oh, gosh.
You're a chemical engineer. You turn your body into a fractionating column.
Oh, wow.
That's weird. No. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Hey.
All right, coming up in a little while, we've got the First Lady of South Africa. She never does interviews. I'm very lucky that I got to sit down and talk to her about something. Listen, it's not a biography. I don't want to promise you that you're going to find out all about her personal life. She's not that kind of person. We were just talking about privacy and what people share, and she's very much disinterested in having attention, for attention's sake. She's the kind of person who gets on with her life. She's got important things to do. She is a medical doctor by training, and so she's no slouch in that respect. She's one of those people who was already important before she married her husband, and she was already successful before she had to rely on any connections, and I don't think she ever has. But she talks very openly and honestly about the one thing that she's really passionate about, which is early care for children in South Africa, particularly in disadvantaged areas. And that's mostly what the interview is about. So I don't want you to think you're going to suddenly find out, what the First Lady thinks of politics. She never talks politics. She's not that interested in it, frankly. So she'll be joining us at 8 o'clock this morning, which is bound to be good. Lots of people loving the book that we spoke to Christine and to Colin about. So if you want to, why not start your own if you want to do that? It's really great. It's good to see so many people doing so many interesting things. Well, Weza, we've kind of gone everywhere this morning. It's been a busy reunion for us to catch up with you, and I hope things are going well. What are you up to at the moment? Tell us what you're actually doing right now.
Okay, so a number of things. One of them is within the voiceover space. I've got a online training too now. So I train people remotely. So I've got people I'm training outside of the country. I recently created a course called How to Charge, just so that people can actually know how to actually charge, because so many guys are just taking whatever cents are put on the table and not quite knowing that there are rate cards out there and how to actually use them, because they can be so confusing too. Then I also have
give us some advice here. What should I charge for voiceover if someone says to me, we want you to do our ad? Give me a ballpark here.
Great. So the first question you're going to ask is, how long is it going to be used for, and where is it going to be used? Because those things matter. So just because it's 30 seconds of your voice doesn't mean that it's just 30 seconds. Come on. No. Okay. 30 seconds of how long is the company going to benefit from this thing? So let's say it's going to be used it's going to be used for 1 year, and it's going to be used on TV. So if it's going to be used on TV for 1 year, that's 9,760 Rand. That's it. And if it's going to be used on TV and on radio, well, then the radio is going to have its own fee. The TV is going to have its own fee. So it goes. So the more places or platforms it's going to be used on, and the longer it's going to be used, the price also changes based on that as well.
And if you do something like an audio book, are you paid by the number of hours that you sit in the studio and record?
No, not actually. You paid more on how much material this is, and also, again, is it going to be distributed for free, or is it going to be sold? Because you could do an audiobook and it's going to be given for free to blind people to help them as aid, but you but you also could be doing it and it's going to be sold for a lot of money. So if it's going to be sold, you're going to so there's first something called a recording fee, and then there's a usage fee. So the recording fee is calculated to say if it is, let's say, if let me just try to figure out a way to calculate that for you. So you calculate it per 5 minutes of finished audio, like of recorded audio, 5 or 10 minutes of that. So what I mean is, it doesn't matter how many mistakes you make, because that's the catch, right? If you say, no, I'll charge you per hour in the studio, and then you deliberately make a bunch of mistakes, now you out there longer in the studio, obviously the client is going to get sour-faced and thinking, Gareth is sharing me. He's making mistakes on purpose, and you don't want that. So instead,
it's like those contractors you ask to come and build your house, and then they take an extra month just because they don't want to extract another month of salary.
Exactly.
Got you. Yeah.
So to make it fair, it is about how long is the finished and recorded audio. So let's say the book was 10 hours long. Well, then you're going to say the first 10 minutes is charged at, let's say, 3,500. And then every 10 minutes thereafter, you add a certain amount of money. And then that is the recording fee. And then
complicated.
That's the thing.
I don't want to get into the reads on this, but like, this is why you probably need to really know what you're doing, because you could be taken advantage of, and
many guys are
undercharge or whatever. And it's hard to figure out price. It's like any business, right? Pricing is such a complicated thing. Like even if you're charging for a product, let's say you sell, I don't know, tea bags, and if you don't get your price exactly right, then the market's going to decide that you're too expensive or that you're too cheap. And the people who think you're too expensive are not going to spend their money on you. And the people who think you're too cheap are going to be suspicious that the quality of what you're selling isn't very good. So you're screwed up. And there isn't really a perfect number, right? For anything in business. That's hard.
And then you also get a bunch of bottom feeders who like the guys who don't know what to charge. They like the guys that can just
undercut everybody, right?
Exactly. So they're like, we're still starting. How about we build a relationship? But they do that with everyone. And as soon as you get too smart, then they move on to the next guy and say, we are starting out. We're building a relationship. So they keep on building these fake relationships, just trying to undercut and every single person. So that's why I made the course, how to charge, because if you do know how to charge, at least you can take it on as a business and actually do well with voiceovers, because you can make a living speaking. And that's what I do.
I mean, so Tracy says here, same in my industry, which is photography, birth photography. Wow, that's very specific.
Photography. Jeez.
Yeah. Some people like
she's
that.
There in the room while the kid's being born.
Yep.
And oh man, that's a graphic image. Yo.
She says, I can't charge an hourly rate for a natural birth. It puts too much pressure on the mom to get the baby out.
That's good stuff. Hey, Weza, I just wanted to ask you, is there any stuff you would never voice over? Because I have I got approached where I do have a little bit of a dilemma. I mean, I don't need to tell you what my dilemma is, but is there any stuff like if the church of I don't know, Satan spawn came to you, or I don't know, I don't know where your threshold would be, but is there anything where no matter how good the money is, you wouldn't use your voice for it, or you're just like, hey, I mean, especially now you are married, that is going to come with a situation where the bathroom now obviously needs gold taps or whatever.
You know what? I think it is important to have those type of boundaries, just like with any business. If you feel if there's something in your conscience that bothers you with doing that particular job, then you shouldn't have to do it just because you feel like you have to do it. So yeah, for me it's the same thing. So if there is something that I feel like this bothers my conscience, or it's maybe going to be in competition with another client who I'm already doing things for, I can respectfully decline those type of things. But because I also train many voice artists and mentor them, I normally have referral type of things as well, where I get other guys gigs that I think maybe they would not mind doing.
I like this question of like, what won't you do? Would you have, so you'd have moral objections to the Church of Satan? Like if they, This is the Church of Satan.
Yeah,
That's
actually,
right. Come and join our church.
So, for instance, right, in the very, very beginning, before I was even a big voiceover artist, there's someone who approached me saying, "Hey, your Afrikaans is so good. We have this business where we fake people being able to connect with their ancestors and stuff. So
Oh my
we have
God.
Afrikaner clients who would."
Yeah.
Pay big bucks, like 15,000 rand, if they could speak to their, to. So this Nigerian guy was literally saying to me, "Look, we can do this, man. You'll make big bucks. You'll drive a GTI like me." And I was poor at the time. So it was good business. I was like, shucks, I could make money. All I have to do is say, "Hello, Pretorius. This your pa," or something like that.
Wow.
And I thought, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. With great power comes great responsibility. And this is what they meant on Spider-Man.
I love that there's a bunch of Nigerians who are making money out of people who want to reconnect with their dead ancestors. That is hilarious. God, people are ridiculous, aren't they? Just unbelievable. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So you would palm off any connection to Satan onto one of your mentees who believes in Satan. You just pass it to them.
To you, Bolelo. That's right. All right, listen, guys, it's fun, but now we're at the end. We've got to wrap this up. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early. Weza, great to chat to you again, catch up with you and see what you're up to. And we'll speak to everybody tomorrow. Have a great day. Cheers. Bye-bye. Oh, well, by the way, the First Lady coming up in a second. So you want to stick around for that in case you haven't seen it. And in case you want to see what it was all about. It was a really fun interview. She's terrific. I think you're going to like her a lot. So that's coming up next. This is cliffcentral.com. Stick around. When we think about the future, we need to think about the children. Did you know that the first 1,000 days of a child's life are critical in shaping the future? With the devastating impact of the coronavirus pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns, thousands of early care practitioners and parents have lost their jobs, which means that thousands of children in vulnerable communities have lost their access to safe, educational early care facilities and associated daily nutrition. How can we help? The Early Care Foundation, an organization I've had a long association with, has launched the No One Left Behind campaign for us to help get children back to school. And it's my honor to introduce our First Lady and patron of the Early Care Foundation, Dr. Tshego Motsepe. It is a great pleasure to welcome you, Dr. Motsepe. Very nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Gareth. And it's true, you've supported us. You've gone with us to events in Soweto, at the Lindo Auditorium, and you've been very, very supportive, mostly in raising funds. In the past, it was when we didn't have the pandemic, when the economy was not challenged like it is, and it's very true. The practitioners who run the early childhood development centers have also been affected. You know, these ladies and men who run their backyard creches, either in the garage, in their houses, or in a container, have also suffered in their businesses because the parents could not afford to bring the children to the creches. Now, as far as the children are concerned, you did say it already, this is the place where most of the children, 4.5 million children in South Africa, depend on the only nutritional meal that they receive from the creches. So during the pandemic, because parents couldn't pay, children couldn't go to the creches, and they were deprived of the stimulation that you've also said. It's so important, you know, that the children...
Critical.
It's very, very critical. It doesn't just start during the first 1,000 days, as you've also said. It is from inception, that the mother is well, so that the cognitive development, you know, the child's brain and development depend a lot on the nutrition that they receive. Apart from that, these early childhood development centers where the children go to are actually mandated by the law. You know, the law says that the Department of Basic Education says that before children go to grade 0, they have to be exposed to early childhood development. Now, we in the Early Care Foundation, we make sure that the children are in a safe, secure, stimulating environment. Safe as in sometimes the parents under normal circumstances are at work, the child is in a safe
They're
place.
unsupervised.
Of course, unsupervised. The children receive meals, they are stimulated, they are taught.
But what I'm saying, sorry, is that the kids often, if they don't have these facilities, find themselves unsupervised. Both parents might be working. They might even be in child-headed households. Yes. We know the social problems we have in this country.
Especially in the most disadvantaged communities, where we have to make sure that as we rise, we make sure that the whole community rises. I was going to say that, you know, the ladies and the practitioners who run these creches, we in the Early Care Foundation, we make sure that we train them. We have courses that are accredited. We've developed courses that are accredited with the sector education and training sector to make sure that the ladies who look after the children are not just childminders.
Right.
They do it with knowledge. They are professionals. And we also remind them that apart from being a place of education, they are running a business. And we try as much as possible to ensure the financial sustainability of the business.
Dr. Motsepe, you are a medical doctor
yes,
by training.
I am.
So you're not just speaking about this in a theoretical sense. You know what you're talking about. You specialized actually in some maternal care and aged care and that kind of thing. So out of all the things that you've spent the many years, you know, before your life did become a little more political, not that you're a political person, but you've spent a lot of time dealing with this. Why is it so close to your heart?
Why is it so close to my heart? Well, I wouldn't know. When I did my master's, it was in maternal child health and aging. And I got exposed to studies of children in different communities where there was good nutrition within the same society. You know, children who were just divided by a road. Those are the real scientific studies that were done where you find that even the diameter of the skull in the child who is well nourished during the first 1,000 days of birth is better developed than a child who's malnourished. And making sure that the children receive proper nutrition and, of course, stimulation during the first 1,000 days of their life, we make, you know, it's possible for them to reach their full potential.
It's almost like a hardware versus a software problem. If those kids don't receive the nutrition and the care and the stimulation at that early age, then it almost makes it harder for them when the education stuff starts to kick in to be able to absorb these things, right?
Gareth,
so you're setting them back.
Gareth, you've been to some of our creches.
Yes.
And you've seen how well nourished those children are.
Yes.
How well nourished and how curious they are. You've spent time, even when we've had Nelson Mandela. I think there was one Nelson Mandela Day where you came and helped with whatever it was, you know, making sure that the environment...
For some of these children, that might be their only good meal that day.
Yes. You've seen how well nourished those children are. And you've also seen the facilities that we try and promote, that the children, you know, that the creches are well resourced.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, they've got to have everything that makes it possible for the children to be like the children in other
more privileged
societies. Yes.
I'm always blown away by the difference that it makes to kids if they do get this early on. And I think that it's probably the best chance we have in South Africa of having a generation of people who can really excel and who can compete with the rest of the world. Because if you arrive at school and the first thing for you is to think about how hungry you are, it's very difficult to learn. And as for the resources that are provided there in terms of education and entertaining the children and allowing them to play in a place that's safe, where there aren't dangerous adults on the street. We also know that there are very nasty things that happen to children if they're left alone without adult supervision, and particularly without responsible adult supervision. So this is essential. Tell me a little bit about these practitioners, because I think they deserve a lot of the credit, and you also provide a huge amount of support to them.
Yes, the program that we run is really like an incubation program, in that apart from exposing them to the, giving them these accredited courses that are accredited with the Sexual Education and Training Authority, we also ensure the financial sustainability. Most of the training that these ladies, they themselves are not well qualified. So we've got to make sure that the material that we use, like the textbooks, are in animated form. They are drawings.
Right.
To make sure that they understand the message. So most of our textbooks are like comic books, and they explain everything that the ladies have to get from the courses. We have trainers. We normally make sure that we have about 20 creches that are in close proximity, and our trainer goes from one creche to another. Once a week, they go to the facility itself and work with the practitioner to make sure that everything at the creche is all right. And then once a week, all the ladies who belong to the forum, they are normally not more than 20. They go either to a hall or to a place where they get their lectures. And some of the lectures are in acting form. They actually perform some of their lectures to make sure that the message stays with them and they understand it completely. We help them we make sure that they comply. The regulations that are based by the Department of Education are very tough. They have to comply with 6 government departments. On their own, they wouldn't. And once they do comply with the departments, then they receive a grant from Department of Social Development, which is 17 Rand per child per day, which amounts to 374 Rand a month.
Wow.
Per child.
It's not a huge amount of money.
Well, we do not discourage the practitioners from also making the parents pay, because most of the time the parents pay with the money from the grant.
Yes.
And they cannot afford, most of the time they can't afford more than 100 Rand.
And this is also where the Early Care Foundation helps, because you are raising funds all the time.
Yes, we raise funds.
For many of these creches across the country.
We do raise funds continuously. And as I said, it's for the resources.
Yeah.
And also to make sure that the business is sustainable. Now, once the children, most of the time when we come to new creches, you find 90 children in a container. The practitioner takes as many children as possible so that they have an income.
Sure.
But once they comply, where the department says each child has to have a space of 2.2 square meters per child, they can reduce the number of children they take, because they know that they will receive a grant from the government, and at least it doesn't affect their income. Another good thing is that they become employers, and that also has an impact on the unemployment problem that we have in our country.
So we're solving a number of problems here all at once. And I think the Early Care Foundation has done incredible work. It must be quite gratifying to see, even though I've known you long enough to know that you're not the kind of person who takes personal joy and pride in these things. You like to see that that good is being done.
Well,
it must be gratifying to know that you've helped so many kids, and that the Early Care Foundation has helped so many
We
kids.
are very lucky that we have very good staff. The people who've been involved, who run the program, and I end up getting all the admiration, but I'm on the shoulders of other people who do the work.
Yes.
And they are the people who go to the provinces all over the country. We have been involved in 4 provinces. Gauteng, Limpopo, Free State, and the Western Cape.
Wow.
Yes, even the Western Cape. We have a committee, and we also have a development board.
Right.
The development board, there's the trustees, like every organization has to have a board. And then we have a development board, who are people who are like our ambassadors. They come with their special skills. They come, they help us with fundraising, and also with whatever special skills, whether it's legal, it's fundraising, it's
advisory stuff, all of that.
They come with special skills that help the organization.
Do you think that the pandemic has made it more difficult for the Early Care Foundation? Has it made it harder for you to access funds, to be able to distribute the funds?
Some of our funders, some of the companies that used to give us money annually have not been able to, because they themselves were affected by the pandemic. And that, of course, has a trickle effect in that it means that we do not receive the funding that we had budgeted for, and then we have to cut some of the programs. We cannot do whatever we wanted to do. It's not just the economy that has suffered. The owners of the crashes have not been able, because the parents were not working. The parents couldn't pay because they were not working. That resulted in the children not coming to the crashes.
Right.
And of course, in that way, then the children are not exposed to the safe, secure, stimulating environment where they get the nutritional.
Are we going to be able to catch up? Will we be able to fill the gap?
Well, we do hope. That is why we are asking the public to help us. We are hoping to raise, at least if an individual donated 400 Rand a month,
right,
that would make it possible for a child to come back.
So if I give 400 Rand, there's a child that's going to be put through crèche.
Definitely, in a year, if you donated 4,800 Rand, that will make it possible for the child to come to the crèche for the whole year. And that alone will make such a big difference to the child's life.
It's a terrific initiative. I'm sure that there are lots of people who would be willing to do that.
We hope so.
This is the future of our country we're talking about.
You are talking like Mandela. That is what Nelson Mandela said.
There's no bigger cause. There's no greater need for us.
Yes, that is what Nelson Mandela said. A society that looks after its children. I forgot exactly the quote, but you said it already. Yes, that is exactly what we have to do for our children.
I'm just very impressed with the work that's already been done. I think that this is a great cause that everyone should get behind. I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are, and I know how much you dislike doing interviews.
I'm very willing to make interviews that are related to the work that we do. But when it comes to personal, why should I talk about myself?
Well, you are a mother, so you also understand things from that point of view.
I am a mother. I'm more a social worker, really, than a medical doctor.
But you're not the kind of person who likes attention. You're not out there trying to get noise.
Please. Thank you.
Well, I'm very grateful.
You know me well.
Well, I'm delighted to know you.
From all the time that you've been with us.
I'm just grateful that you and the terrific people like Ipeleng and the rest at the Early Care Foundation are doing such a good job.
And of course, we also have to thank the people who were there before. When there were only two people who ran the organization, Deirdre Caldwell and Richard Ferrer, they were doing everything, the two people, and we're lucky to get Ipeleng and the practitioner and the trainers. We have a very, very good thing, and I really have to say thank you to them.
Well, thank you very much.
For the good work that they are doing.
Thank you, our First Lady.
Thank
you very much, and well done to the Early Care Foundation. A really tremendous job, and something we all need to know about. If you didn't know about it before now you know, and support them if you can.